So good morning. This is part one of the middle school, high school scheduling. So we are going to look at things such as our courses, course sections, course groups, and we will look at adding course requests for the students, as well as different ways that you can do that. So I am, for the Zoom people, I am going to start and stop the recording several times because I want to record these all separately, so we can post them on our website. And don't forget, and I know some of you couldn't join or people couldn't join today, don't forget we'll put all of our recordings under the student services and they will be listed here for you to watch or rewatch if needed. So we are going to get started. Some of the information that we are going to use today is on the documents homepage, or the student information homepage under documents. There's a few things under scheduling. So there is this checklist. So looking at the checklist, to me, it was pre-created before I started this training. But to me, it looks like a majority of the reports and things that you can run, not necessarily a checklist per se, but just different information that you can gather while you are doing your scheduling process. And it does have information for both part one and part two in there. This course request import, this was a handmade document, which it is also now located in the Learning Center. It has the information you need. So again, the Learning Center's up here and you do have to be logged in for that, but this is also there as well. And then something that I put on here, and it's not under scheduling, I do have it under SYI. It is called school year specific record changes. So I was working with some people and one of the questions was, well, what can I change? And being newer into the system, I wasn't for sure exactly what could be changed and what can't be changed. So I asked Frontline for that information, and they had this document. Would have been nice to have months ago. But while I went through school year initialization, I did not have that. So now I do have this, and I wanted to share with people because these are the things that you can do now that school year initialization is done. So if you want to start working in the 25-26 school year, these are all the different things that are school year specific that you can start working with. And a majority of what we're going to be doing is right here in the courses area, looking at our courses, making changes to them, creating our course requests, things like that. So again, all of those things are school year specific, but you can see the other things in here as well, of things that you can't do. One thing that we will talk about today, and I will point out, these are items that are not school year specific and cannot be changed until summertime. And one of the things that we'll talk about is the rooms and locations. So those cannot be changed, as well as the capacity for a room. So, maybe room 201, you had that it could fit 20 people, but you realize that's too many kids and you want to change it to 15. You cannot change that until summertime. So that's something that you cannot do mid-year. But again, it's there. Share with your other people at your district if they're working with the future school year. So these are all the things that can be changed. And again, I did put that under SYI because those are the things that when we do the SYI process, most of those carry over. Okay, so those are a couple documents. So we are going to start in the course section, procedural checklist. So hopefully you have those. If not, in the Learning Center, in student information, under your procedural checklists, you have the course section, course group, procedural checklist, which is right here. So every district, except for one, has SYI completed. So what that does is any active courses in the 25-26 school year become rolled over and go to the 25-26 school year with the SYI process. But what we are going to be working with today is our future school year. We want to make sure that we're in 25-26 and not the current school year, because that would be bad if you start making changes to courses and things like that to the current school year. So a couple things that you can run, and these are typical reports. You can use these anytime throughout the year. So one that all of the courses. So the two that we are going to look at basically shows all your courses. But the difference is that the CRSE report allows you to pick or customize your fields that you want to display. So I have that pulled up in the Learning Center. So it is a drop down box when you are working in on the CRSE report. So these are all the fields that you can display. So you can select up to 10 different fields to display. If you pick more than 10, because it will not stop you at 10, it will only print 10. So just be aware of that. If you're like, oh, I'm still clicking and it's still letting me do this, it's not going to stop you, but it will not print those last few that you selected. So I just kind of like this display so you can see everything that is available for you to pull up. So when we run the CRSE, so I'm going to go back into my student information. In my go-to box, I am just going to type in CRSE and it'll bring up the report. So if this is something that you can, if you run often, you can actually save your load settings. So it does allow you to do that if you want to. I'm not going to save them today. I'm just going to pick some selection criteria so we can see the report. Your course types, be careful with this, because if you are going to run this report, don't just necessarily say, oh, I just want to see my classes. Because if some of your CCP classes are coded as CCP, you want to make sure you're getting those as well. So you might want to just leave everything over to the left so it'll look at everything. Now, if you're looking at a specific grade level, you can pull in a grade level. So if you just want to see all of the courses available to seniors, you can just pull over the 12th grade. Or if you want to see everybody at the high school and or your middle school, you can leave everything over to the left and it'll pull those in. These we typically leave to the left because it's going to look at everything for us. What we want to look at are the fields to display. This is where you can pick 10 different fields. So again, it's going to have things like what type of course it is, if there's a course weight set to it, credits available. So is it a half credit? Is it a full credit? If there's a level of difficulty. A couple important ones, is it high school credit? So this is important for our middle school because we want to make sure only those that are counting towards high school credits are marked for high school credits. So typically maybe an ag class, maybe an algebra 1 class, but we don't want like a basic 6th grade math class to be is high school credit, because the is high school credit defaults to being on when you create a course. Include in GPA. So things like study halls, if you have like an intervention class, a case management class, a coach's class, those things shouldn't be included in the GPA. So we're going to make sure that those are off for those types of courses. And then of course, is it active? Okay, so again, if it's not active, if it's inactive, it will not carry up to the next school year. So if you do see a course on there and you're like, oh, we haven't had this course for several years, you can make it inactive. And then next year when we do SYI, it will not carry up and you will not see it any longer. Okay. So go through your criteria. And like I said, I just like that kind of whole list. That's why I wanted to show you the Learning Center instead of trying to go through this little drop down and maybe miss something. You can say only include courses that have requests, but we haven't started our requests yet, or maybe you have. But if you want to see all of your courses, leave that unchecked. And then we're just going to sort by our course codes. And then I'm going to hit submit. It's just a PDF, so it's not something that you can filter. You can put it into an Excel form. It's kind of, if you've tried to do a report and you put them into Excel, they're kind of messy and you have to clean them up because it puts these headers and so forth. But if you like using Excel, you can do it that way. But this is just going to show you what the course code is, what the course name is, the grade levels that have been selected for that, which will be for if you're going to use the public module. So what grade levels can pick that course, what credits they are going to get for that class, if it's an honors class, if it has difficulty points. And then I picked if it's on the report card, if it's included in GPA, reporting to EMIS, what the student population is, and if it's high school credit. So again, you could have picked 10 completely different ones. That is your choice. What I do want to point out in here is something if you are creating a course and you have EMIS exceptions. So if something is different for the course, so for example, I have 2 world histories here. So it's still section 12 or 012, but section 2, notice my student population is SE for special ed. So that is something that I would put on the EMIS override tab. So it's overriding the general population of regular ed and making it a special ed class. So you might see those occasionally through there if you are doing some type of EMIS override.
Shelley, with the SE override, how do you dictate what kids get into that and what kids don't?
Well, to have it as a special ed class, you have to have over 50% of the population to be special ed. So my guess is you would manually assign them to that class versus doing batch scheduling. And sometimes this is just an example. Sometimes instead of doing an EMIS override this way, maybe it's 012S for a special ed class. I see that a lot too. They'll have initials or SE included in the course code instead of doing that EMIS override. So again, you can do it either way. So this was just an example to show. But again, you would probably be assigning them individually if those students need to be in that specific class. Okay, I'm going to close out of that one and we're going to look at another report. This is in the Analytics Hub. So this is your course details report. So it is under your scheduling. If you want to go the long way, I have mine starred, or you can type up here in the search box up at the top for course detail report. And if you use Analytic Hub reports, you'll know sometimes they take a while to load. So you can look at the previous year and or the current year. So I'm going to go 25, 26, and I'm only going to look at my high school. And I'm going to say, okay. Now this does allow you to export to Excel. So you can filter things out. You can work with it a little bit better. But what I want to show you before we even export this, this is a very long, wide report. Everything that is on the creating a course on all the different tabs is listed across the top. So for example, a lot of us do not use course descriptions because course description is really just an internal thing. It shows up for you, or maybe if you have somebody else that you're working with, just for informational for you. So if I hover over, you can see that I get it looks like a spreadsheet, A, B, C, D. Those are all my column headings. Okay. If I come over here to the dots, so most people don't even know this is over here, but now I can start rearranging things or I can start removing things. So if I don't want to see that course description, I can say, okay, let's turn off column C. Again, there's a bunch of other things too if you don't want them on there. If you are an Excel user, you can also do this in Excel and just delete the entire column. But that is available if you did not know those, it's not even 3 dots, it's 4 dots. But that's available for you. And you can actually change the order too, if you wanted to change the order. So if I export this to Excel, see what window it opens in. Okay, so you can see here, there's all my columns. I can filter, I can do whatever I need to do, but you can see that column C is hidden. So it does not even bring that over. So it just automatically hides that column with no information in it. So if you're an Excel user, if you're looking for your ones that are not for high school credit, I can turn on my filter and I can say filter out the nose. And that's going to show me any that are not high school credit. Okay. Any questions with these 2 reports? So again, courses are school year specific. So if you're looking at these reports, you might want to go through them. Bless you, bless you. You might want to go through them and see which ones are active, kind of cross out any that you are not using, to make them inactive for next year so they don't pull over during SYI. Okay, so now let's start looking at our courses. Okay, and most of your courses, they're already created. You might have to create another one. Maybe you're offering a new elective, maybe you're offering a new language, something like that, where you're going to be adding a course from scratch. But a majority of the time, you are probably modifying something that you have or adding additional course sections. But we are going to go through all the tabs in our courses. So in my go-to, I just typed in courses and you can see I have courses listed here. So like I said, a majority of the time you already have all your courses created. Or again, if you're looking through it and go, oh, we're not offering this, you can make that course inactive. So I'm just going to search for our courses. So these have all populated from last year. So anything that was active last year automatically comes over. Same course code, same course name, all of that comes over. Again, like I said, majority of the time, if something is, changing or whatever, you're probably modifying a course that you have unless you're adding a completely new, you're adding a new subject area. Like I said, an elective or a language or something like that. So let's look at this one. So our course code is actually very specific. So if I put in that leading 0, so for my 0302, my phys ed, it's supposed to be with the rest of my 300s down here with my other phys ed classes. So, but because I put in that leading 0, it puts it in the line a little bit differently. So if I see this and I'm like, ooh, I wanted to clean that up. I know last year it was causing an issue. I can click on my pencil So instead, I'm not creating a whole new one. I'm just modifying the one that was already created. I just want to remove the 0 out of there. And then once I hit save, you'll see that it takes it out of the 0302 area and it moved it with the other 300s and put my phys ed 10 with the other ones. Okay, so it does sort these. It does sort them by course code. You can change the area that you are sorting by if you click on the column heading. But by default, it does sort by the code. So we're going to go into a class. If you already have classes or if you know you're creating a new one, you can start by clicking on add course. I'm going to modify or look at my English 10. So I'm going to click on my edit pencil. And again, double check to make sure you're in the future school year. There we go. So your course code does have to be unique. Okay, so keep it short and simple. It does say that the course code can be 15 characters, but EMIS only takes 10. So it's best to even have it shorter than 10 to keep it small. Teachers do see this in gradebook. So if they are working on something, and I forgot to pull that one up, I was going to have that up and ready for you. So when teachers are looking at their gradebook, no, wrong school. Hold on. So if I'm looking at a teacher's grade book, they will see it's called the course ID. They are going to see that. So that's why you don't want to make it too long because there's not a lot of room for them to see this. So they will see the course name, they will see the course section, and then the course ID. Okay. Or in student information, because why would they call them the same thing? It's called the code in here, is the code course ID that the teacher sees. The other thing that they see is this course name. So the course name can be up to 30 characters. I would not suggest 30 characters because it will go on 2 lines of text, because looking in a teacher's grade book, they only have so much room for it to populate. So it will drop down onto 2 lines. The abbreviation, again, it can only be 8 characters, so make it short and sweet. Typically, we don't see this except for on the GPA detail screen and that course detail report that we just ran. So that's one of the columns on that course detail report. But when you're looking at a student, if you have a student in context and go to their GPA detail screen, you will only see the abbreviation. You do not see the course name. Okay. And then the short name, and again, these can all be matching if you want. The course code just has to be unique to the course itself. But the short name is what is seen on the schedule card or the R701. So even if you just put Ing 10 to match the abbreviation, this would show on the GPA detail screen and this would show on the schedule card. The description, again, the description is more for an internal thing. So if you want to put something in there, if there's multiple counselors at your building, you can put something in there for somebody else to read. But this does not display anywhere except for that course detail report from the Analytic Hub. So your hours of instruction. So it is calculated by the number of the minutes of the class times the number of days that it meets divided by 60. Okay, so depending on if it is a full year class versus if it is a semester class versus if it's a 9 weeks class, it cannot be less than 18. 18 is the minimum hours of instruction. A typical all year class is between 120 and 150 to give you a guesstimate. Okay, so again, that's the number of minutes of the class. So hopefully you have a even number like 40 or 45, but nobody seems to. It's like 42 or 47. So multiplied by the number of days. So if it's a semester class versus if it's an all year class, and then divide that by 60. And that gives your hours of instruction. Scheduling priority. So 9 is the highest, with 1 being the lowest. So your core classes or your required classes are typically scheduled at a higher number, like your 9s or your 8s, where your electives, things like that, are scheduled at a lower priority level. So we're going to look at a few of these check boxes. Display on public module. We are going to talk about that at the end of today's session. But if you are having the students go on and put in their course requests through the public module, you will want to make sure that that's on there. Now, things like study hall, and you don't want them to be able to request a study hall, you would not want that on a public module. Same with like a case management class or a coach's class. Those don't need to be on there. This is where the is high school credit is checked. So this is checked by default if you are creating a new course. So my middle school people, if it is not a true high school credit course, you will want to make sure that that is unchecked. So you don't want that included in high school credit. Okay. For example, like I said, like a 6th grade math class is not for high school credit, but you might have a 6th grader taking a algebra 1, which is for high school credit. So you want to make sure the algebra 1 is checked, but math 6 is not. Roll the course up to next year. That is during rollover during the summer. It will roll over to the next school year. College prep, this is going to be removed. That was also said last year during this time, and it still has not been removed. I wouldn't think it's that hard to remove it out of here, but it doesn't do anything. So you can just leave that unchecked. So display on parent access. So I want to explain this a little bit because this is confusing to people because they only see one part of it. So let's see if I'm still logged in over here. Probably logged me out. It did. I'm just going to switch back. Okay, so we have a study hall. So we're looking at this study hall, and if we're looking at the study hall, it says display on parent access. Well, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want it to display on parent access. So they uncheck it. So before I uncheck it, let's go into, look at my student here. So when you're looking at the student's schedule card in parent access, it is going to have it on their schedule. Okay. So if I look here, here's my study hall with Mrs. Walker. Okay. And it's an all year class. If I decide I don't want it to display on parent access, I uncheck it and I hit save. Now, when I'm in parent access for the student, you can see that on the schedule, my study hall is not showing. However, in things such as the planner and other places within, it is still going to have study hall listed. So if it's something like a coach's class, if it's something like a case management class, There is also a setting in gradebook that needs to be checked that some of you might not have access to. But with that being said, so in gradebook, if I find that course, why am I not finding a study hall? There it is. So from the admin screen, and not everybody has admin access, there is something in gradebook that says exclude from parent access. So if this is checked along with the one in student information, now when a student goes on and if they look at their schedule, there is no study hall. If they look at their planner, there is no study hall. And if they look at the grade screen, there's no study hall. So it's actually like a two-step process. So again, if it's something like a coach's class or a case management class, talk to whoever's at your building that has school admin access and they can turn it off in gradebook. Okay. Any questions with that? Okay. Let me go back into my English class. It is active. If you decide that you don't want this class called English 10 and you make it inactive and save, it is not going to populate when you do a search. Okay. So if I just hit search, all my active ones are going to show unless I scroll all the way down to the bottom and uncheck show active only. Then it will repopulate the ones that are not active. Why I point that out is because if you make it inactive and you're like, oh, I need English 10. So you go and you add a new course, it's going to say, hey, this code is already used. So then you have to find it as the inactive course, and then you can reactivate it and edit as needed. Okay, so just be aware of that. Making it inactive doesn't delete it. It's just inactive, and you can't reuse that course code. Oh, and I lost half where I'm at. Okay. Is in update history. This is a setting that is on the R700 when you are printing your report cards. So if you say is in update history, I think it defaults to yes, but this is unchecked. This course will not show up on the report card. So it is important that that does populate. This will also show that course on the student's course history. Core course. So the core course, that's not being used, so it doesn't really matter if it's checked or not. Dual credit is if it's high school credit as well as college credit. And then I still don't understand the NCAA core courses. If somebody can explain them to me. All I know is that it wasn't there and now it is a feature that is there. Is anybody using this or checking this for the courses? Okay. We'll just skip on over to the next tab then. So the marks, so I'm going to go to marks, which is our next tab. Typically, most of this stuff is defaulted to what you need. The course weight is typically 10. That's what it defaults to. There are times where you might need to increase the weight if you need to balance out some of the harder courses. So you don't want a student having 4 CCP classes their first semester, and then their second semester they get 4 electives. So what you would do is some of those CCP classes, you would give them a higher weight, and then it's going to try to balance them out between first semester and second semester. Your level of difficulty, that would be if you are using a weighted scale. So if you know, have a 5-point scale or a 4-point scale, you would pick what level of difficulty you are using here for this course. So if it's an honors, if it's a regular English 10 class, there might not be any level of difficulty, but maybe you have an honors English 10 class and it is weighted. So you would pick that level of difficulty here. GPA add-ons, I do have one district that is using this. Again, you would have the add-on set up first, and then you would pick that for this course. So again, it would be for some type of honors course or CCP course. So if the student got a minus, they might have an automatic add-on level of 0.02 added to their GPA. So that's what the add-on is. It's a little bit different than your level of difficulty, which is giving you like a different grading scale. How many credits? This is a required field. So if it's a full year class, typically it's 1 credit, half a credit for semester class, and so forth. We don't really use the bump or the rank weight. If this is a CCP class, how many hours are they getting for the college credit? So how many college credit hours is it? Is it a 3-hour class, a 4-hour class, etc.? And then the IRN of the CCP location. So is it Akron? Is it Ashland? Is it Wayne? Is it Stark State? Once you populate this, the easiest way is to click on the magnifying glass so you can search for it, but it will automatically create the college location. So if you put in an IRN and it populates the wrong college, double check your IRN because that will automatically populate that. Is an honor roll. So if you are running honor rolls, I know most high schools do, sometimes middle schools don't, but will it be included in the honor roll? Is it included in the total number of credits that should be on? So, you know, is this going at study hall? Might not be. Okay, so it's not going to the number of credits. Is it included in the GPA? So again, a study hall would not be included in the GPA, but an English class would be. Is it an honors course? Okay. And then is it included in the permanent record and should it print on the report card? So these are all important ones. If you're running the R700, you want to make sure that it is included on the report card. The permanent record labels are also from the R700. I don't know how many people are using that at the upper levels, but it's where it actually prints the label if you want to put it in their permanent folders. If you do include in GPA, so if this is an English class, it's included in the GPA. It also has to have the is college or is high school credit checked as well. So on the general tab, is high school credit has to be checked along with the include in GPA. Miscellaneous. So the miscellaneous tab should carry over if you are, you know, you already have a course created. So your department, that's going to be your subject areas, the area of study. Okay, so if this was a science class, your subject area, you can fill this out if you want to. The important one is your course type. So a majority of our courses are class. So, you know, it's a normal class, it's English class, it's a math class, it's a science class. You can code a class as CCP if it is a CCP class. Okay, so, but be aware when you're running reports, know if you are using both of those. Okay. Lunches should be classified as lunches because of HB 410. You cannot dock them for absence purposes during a lunch period. So you want to make sure your lunch is coded as a lunch. And then your study hall also should be coded as study hall. I don't know how they got the Z, but we'll just go with it. But if it is coded as a study hall, there is the study hall wizard that you can run that will fill in study halls for any period that does not have anything scheduled. So those are important to make sure that you are choosing those correctly. So a couple other ones that might be used is your case management. So if you do have a case management class, you can classify that course at the course type as case management, and it will not show on the student schedule. Okay, so case management does not show on the student's schedule. However, the spare, so this one, so if it's used for something like intervention class or something like that, and our blank, so which is an old one, so it's carried over from poise, which I'd never even used poise, but they kept it in here. They do show on the student schedule, so just be aware of that. Case management does not, but spare does. This in graduation eligibility, that's going to determine if it is part of graduation eligibility screen. So if it's a core class like this, you will want that checked. If it's something like a study hall, it does not have to be checked. The language, there's nothing to select there. It just automatically defaults to English. There's someplace else where you can change the language of the class. I think it's on the EMIS tab. The gender directive, I don't know how much this is used. It might be used for a phys ed class, but that would probably be the only case. That's if you want to restrict it to females or males. So if if you just have girls phys ed, boys phys ed, you can restrict it, especially if you're doing the public module. So it will not let them register. Actually, it does, but it will give you a warning to say, hey, a male has registered for this restricted to female class. So again, I don't know how often that is used, but it is there.
Hey, Shelley, for a
Yes.
study hall, do you have to have something in the subject area?
No. Nope. You might not have anything in any of these, but you would want it to be the course type of Z. Does that make sense? I mean, you could say it's a study hall, but it is not required. Becky, that is an awesome question. So the question in the chat is, if you use the code case management class as a case management class instead of spare, will the intervention specialist still have access to those kiddos in gradebook? I would assume it would integrate over. I would have to do some testing on that. I don't see why it wouldn't. I just don't believe it shows on the student schedule. But if the course section is scheduled to that specific teacher, I would assume that it would integrate into gradebook. Again, I'll do some double checking, but I think it would be there for them. Because you would have to set up a course section, and then that's assigned to the teacher, and that's what integrates over. Right here, this course level selected, this is very important, especially if you're using the public module. What grade levels? It says that it's required. I have seen these blank, and it does cause issues. It's, for some reason it's not populating for, 10th grader, and I come in here and nothing is selected. I don't know how you can save without it, but I've seen it. But you just want to double check what grade levels is this course available for. So for example, this is a 10th grade English class. I might want it available for 9, 10, and 11, but not 12. So then I can remove the 12. Or maybe like a capstone class is only available to my seniors, so it's not available to anybody else. Okay, the next tab is the EMIS tab. So these top two do not have to be filled out with your building IRN. It will automatically know based on the building in context. If you do have information filled out there, that is fine. You don't have to worry about removing it. The EMIS staff provider IRN, I know our IB school closed. The only thing that I could think of is if there is an ESC employee that is teaching a course, and typically that's at our preschool level, not necessarily at the high school level. But if there is some case where it is like an ESC provider, you would provide their IRN number there. Course level. So this would be if you had something specific like Spanish, you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. You would be able to pick the course level, what your course code is. Okay, so again, these are EMIS specific, so you might want to confirm with your EMIS coordinator to make sure if you are creating a new course that it is the correct EMIS code. If not, they are going to get errors, but they can run reports to make sure. But it's just something to double check with them to make sure that they're certified to teach what the course code is. The subject area for credit. So this is my English class, so it is an English credit. So there are now elective credits for our core areas. Those have been added in here. So it might be something like maybe a speech class or something. So it's English, it counts as an elective credit, not towards their 4 English credits. Okay, so you'll see that for all of our subject areas. Those were just recently added. Okay, then if it is a core subject area, so those are all listed here. So again, making sure that you are selecting the correct one. It does have to be is high school credit. Okay, so if it's math 6, it shouldn't be is high school credit, so you don't need a core subject area. If there's an end of course assessment, so these are end of course assessments. So because of this is language arts 2, there is the language arts 2 exam. This also, if there is an exam for this course, this also populates the pre-ID labels. So that is important to select that here. So it knows who is enrolled in this class, and it'll create the pre-ID labels for the end of course for ELA. Is it a CTE credit? Yes or no? What is the curriculum? Typically it is, OT, which is curriculum not specifically covered by another option. Some of them will be PS for our post-secondary, but those are typically the 2 that, or AP for advanced placement. But those are your most popular ones, majority of our classes being OT. Delivery method. I do know we still have some that are online. So that is an option. A computer as an instructor. I just had this with somebody, and I forget, when you have computer as an instructor, you can't have the IRN as 99999. I would have to look at that again, but that was the only one. It is in the documentation what you can have if you use computer as instructor. But if you're doing an online course, you're providing the curriculum to them, you can put online. Again, majority of ours are face-to-face. So our educational option is typically no. Our student population is typically regular or general ed. With the occasion, some of our classes are resource classes, might be special education. Remember, it has to be greater than 50% of the population has to be special education students. And there might be times where we have courses that are specifically for gifted. Okay, same thing. A majority of your population has to be gifted. Okay, and then is this credit flex? Typically no, unless it's used for credit recovery. This would be filled in if someone else, for example, if you had somebody from the ESC providing the instruction. So again, that's typically not filled in. That was used when we had the IB school, but now that that has closed, this is typically left blank. And then this last one is the important one. It is checked by default, the report to EMIS, because we want to report all our core classes to EMIS. However, if it is class such as lunch, if it's a study hall, if it's a coach's class, intervention, we want to remove that report to EMIS check mark. And again, that is something that you can look on the course detail report to see who has or what courses are reported to EMIS. Okay. And then our last tab is our pre or co-requisites. So I did add one for this class as a new one. So 001 is English 9. So that is a prerequisite. So you have to complete English 9 before you move on to English 10. So if you wanted to add a prerequisite, again, like maybe something for Spanish. So if in order to take Spanish 2, you have to have Spanish 1. You can see here, you can add the course. Or if it's a co, meaning, so maybe it's a science class and they're taking the actual science class plus they're taking a lab, they have to be taken together. Or at the Career Center, you might have different courses that they have to be taken together. That would be a co-requisite. And I can just come in here. If that is the course that they need, I can type in the code and it will populate. And then you would save that if you are adding that new. Okay. So that is our course. So any changes that you had made to any of the tabs, you would want to hit save. So that would save any of your changes. Okay, next. Looking at course sections. So I'm just going to go back one level in my breadcrumb trail. And then I can go to course sections, or in the go-to, you can type in sections. So this is where I can search for any of my sections. Excuse me. I would have to pick my working schedule because our schedule is not completed yet. So it would be my default schedule, my results set. And once I hit search, it's going to show all of my course sections. So you're sitting here and going, wow, that's a lot. Am I still going to have, how many sections of world history did I have? How many sections of this? So there are a few reports that you should run before you start working with all your course sections to make sure that things are going to be used the same way they were last year. Maybe, for example, whoever was teaching speech is going to retire at the end of the year. So we want to update that to a fake teacher, things like that. So there are two different reports. There is one called the R407. Because our schedule is not finalized, we do have to pick our schedule and our result set. You can pick the course term. So if you only want to see semester classes, maybe you only want to see first semester, or maybe you want to see all year classes. If you want to see these for a specific grade level, you can pull in, okay, what is being offered for my 10th grade students? Okay. Show my active only. So you don't want to be looking at your inactives, because you might be making adjustments to this and making some of these inactive. And then I'm going to hit submit. You can see there's other things. You print only the totals. If you only want groups, things like that, we're just going to leave those unchecked. I'm going to hit submit. So when I look at this, it's going to break it down and say, okay, so English 10, this is what I have. So this is what copied up during SYI. I have section 1. It's the class allows me to have 25 people. Then I have section 2. This was split up in 2 different rooms. So maybe it was because of a lunch period or something like that. So you can see Monday, Wednesday, Friday is 4th period in this room, and then Tuesday, Thursday in this room. So as you go through, you can go through world history. You're like, oh, okay, I can only have 50 kids in there. You know what? We're going to have to add a new section this year. So now I'm going to add a section. So again, this is broken down by course. So it's going to show you each of the courses and what sections are already available. Another one that you can look at, I'm going to close out of that one. Another one that you can look at is the R807. So this is going to show a little bit more details. I don't have 12th graders, so we're going to remove that. So you can do for a specific class, if you want for a specific class, a specific grade level. And if you want to see everything, so I'm just going to say print all the courses, and I want it broken down by teachers. So now I can see more details based on what teacher is teaching what. So for example, I said that we know that the speech teacher is retiring at the end of the year. So we want to see what else she is teaching. And I forgot who my speech teacher was. Oh, here she is. I don't know. Mr. don't know. So I can see what else. So he teaches English 11 classes, speech, and trigonometry, because that goes well with English. So anyways, so I know that I would have to go into each of those course sections and change the teacher. So you might have a TBD for a to be determined. You might have a teacher or staff. You want to make sure that this is changed because you know that this teacher will not be teaching next year. It is also going to show you what periods. It is also going to show you the room location and the capacity. The term, so that's the course term, whether it's a semester class or whether it's an all year class. So some districts try to match up the sections with the period that it's being taught, but that's not always the case. So for example, in this one, English 10, it's section 4, but it is being taught 5th period. So that's up to you. Some people use double digits. You know, it might be section 32 if it's, you know, for sophomores, or, you know, in the 30s. So you keep everything in the 30s for the sophomores, for any of their electives that they can take and so forth. So again, everybody does their sections a little bit different, but this breaks it down by the teacher so you can go through it quick and see what that teacher is specifically teaching. So the 407 is more for the course itself to see what sections are built. And then the 807 is more for the teacher, what courses that teacher is teaching. Remember, course sections are school year specific, so it's fine to start working in the 25-26. But you'll see at the bottom of page 16, it says, hey, reminder, make changes to your staff, the rooms, periods as needed. But remember, I gave you that, or I showed you that paper at the beginning. What is one thing that we cannot change because it's not school year specific is our rooms and locations. Okay, so even though it says that, don't start changing rooms and locations. So we're going to look at those things real quick. So if I go to my analytics hub, I'm going to go under staff and my staff details. I'm going to look at for the future year for the 25-26. And then for my high school only. And this is going to show all of my active staff members. So again, maybe your district's having a buyout and several people are going to be retiring. You can go through here and mark up who is going to be leaving and so forth. So you can see all the current active staff members. Okay. The other thing you can look at is rooms. So this is just a visual on screen. So my rooms and locations, this is what cannot be changed during the school year. So you do have to wait until summertime in order to make any corrections to this. So for example, maybe this classroom, room 120, says it can hold 30 people, but you figured that's way too many people in that class. You want to narrow it down to 22 people. Don't edit this now because it will modify it in the 24-25 school year as well. Okay, so wait for any room or location changes until the end of the school year. Staff details in the analytic hub. And then during the SYI process, we did update any of the periods, or they should be updated. So maybe you had periods 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this year you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4A. So I'm going to look at my master calendar period maintenance. Those should be all of the periods that you have for your building. So again, just different things to look at prior to modifying some of your sections. Okay. So now I am going to go back to my sections and look at these a little bit more in detail. So I'm going to go to my course sections. I'm running slow. So I'm still going to look at my English 10 class. So you can type in the course name or you can put in the code. If you haven't been here, and you'll have to check the working schedule. Now, if you know, for example, we know, for example, that Mr. Don't Know is leaving. So I can just pull him up. If I don't put in a course, I can just put in Mr. Don't Know, search for him, and it's going to show all the classes that he is teaching. And then I can change those to a generic staff member. So you can pull them out by teacher, but we're going to look at one. I'm going to go by my English 10 class. I'm going to search. So you can see here, so I have section 1, it's taught 3rd period in room 26. And then I have this one that has all this extra information in it. By default, it will show see schedule if it is multiple listings, but you can customize. So I'll show you that as well. So I'm just going to go into section 1, and we're going to look at this. So I'm going to click on the edit pencil. So this is my course section. Okay, my section number. So again, depending on what your district does, you might have a set way. Hey, if it's section 1, that means it's first period. If it's section 6, that means it's sixth period. You might have it so it's section 41, that means it's only available to seniors. Okay, so anything in the 40s is my 4th year students, it's only available to them. Capacity, how many students are allowed to be in this class? Typically your capacity works with your room capacity. So you don't want to say that I can have 30 kids, but the room only holds 15 people. So make sure you're looking at those rooms and locations to make sure that it will work. The course term. So when you are working with the course term, if you have students already requesting, okay, or already assigned to this, you cannot change the course term. So if this is going to change from an all-year class to a semester class, all those students need to be removed. Okay, any student that has been assigned to it needs to be removed. And then I can come here and I can change it to a semester class. Then I would have to reassign it to the course as the course term semester. Okay. Is active. Okay, so again, if this course section is not going to be used this year, maybe we only need 2 sections. You can make it inactive. It will stay there. It doesn't actually delete. So then maybe next year you have a bigger group coming up and you're going to have more kids. You can search for that and reactivate it. The meeting time description will populate from the meetings times tab. Okay, unless you click on this custom button. So if you have multiple teachers teaching it, or there's multiple rooms, maybe before lunch, they're in room 100, they go to lunch, and then after lunch, they go to room 110. You might want to put that in the description. If you check the custom box, it does not automatically update if you change meeting times, things like that. Once you check custom, it's custom. You need to make sure that you're going in to change it when needed. Okay, meeting times. So this one is important because your meeting times, what is on this page is what populates in the teacher's grade book. So whoever this teacher is, once integration gets turned on over the summer, once scheduling is, so your schedules have been finalized, integration gets turned on, Tommy Brown is going to get English 10 section 1 in their grade book, on the grade book side. Okay, and it'll be for period 3. Okay, so again, this is the important one that populates for the teachers. So typically a majority of our classes on our meetings time tab is basic. We have the same teacher, the same period throughout the day. Okay, so that's a typical situation. Sometimes we have an intermediate. So this might be, and there's examples. So if you look at page 21, there's examples. You might have multiple teachers. You might have, co-teachers. Maybe it's a special ed class and you have a gen ed teacher and a special ed teacher teaching it. So you're going to have both of them listed. Maybe you have multiple rooms. So this would be something that's different. So right now I can only pick one room, but if I have multiple rooms, I would have to pick my intermediate. Okay. So again, like I said, maybe We go to 126 before lunch, then lunch happens, we come back for fifth period and we're in room 120. So that would be our intermediate. And again, whatever is here for our meetings time. So this is all populating on the general tab in the meeting times description. So if I did have multiple periods and I changed it to intermediate, I have multiple periods, I have multiple locations, that is when I can come to my general tab. And if I want to customize it, I can customize. Oh, now I'm making it. Okay, so now you can see, because I added different things. Now it says not defined. So if I want to customize, I could. I'm going to switch it back because this is a basic. Oops, completely. There it goes. Oh, it wiped it out. I don't remember who my teacher was. Hold on. See, I could just look this up. Early birth. I didn't hit save. I don't know why I did that. Okay. My memberships, typically we don't have any memberships. You might see something here if you group classes together. So if you are doing semester only classes. Oh, sorry, going back to our meeting time, typically we don't use the advanced. If you are using advanced or you need to use advanced for something, I can get more information for you. Sometimes it might be used if there is an A day and a B day. So if the schedule is really different and it's going to be that way, you might use the advanced. And like I said, if that is something that we need to look at, we can look at that a little bit more in detail. Your memberships would be if you're grouping sections together. So for example, I'm taking English 10, but I have first semester and second semester. They have to be taken together. So you might see those groups listed here. The attendance, you can cross that out. None of our districts take period attendance in student information. We take period attendance in gradebook and it stays in gradebook. So this step is not needed. It is just saying, hey, every day, third period, that's where the attendance would be. Teacher history tab. Okay, so our meetings time tab is what goes over to gradebook. Okay, so that's the important one. But our teacher history tab is what goes to EMIS for reporting purposes. So typically, we're not changing this a zillion times throughout the year unless there's like a mid-year retirement, somebody left on medical leave, maternity leave, and another teacher is taking over. So at the beginning of the school year, so maybe it's important that you're making sure that the meetings times tab is correct. The EMIS coordinators have something called wipe and new. So at the beginning of the school year, they will run that process and it will make sure that the teacher history tab matches what is on the meetings times tab. Okay. So again, for you and for the teacher, for gradebook purposes, the meetings time tab is the most important. However, the teacher history tab is what does get reported to the state. So they will make sure that it is up to date with that wipe and new. However, throughout the school year, so say Tommy fell on the ice, broke his back, he's in a full body cast. He can't come back to work. So we found somebody for the rest of the school year. So I can come in here and I can say, okay, Tommy was supposed to be here until the end, but he left last Friday. Oh, we're in the future year. But anyways, this would be if it was your current year. He was leaving on Friday. Okay, I would save that, and then I would add a new person that would start on Monday. Okay, the end date and the start date cannot overlap. So one has to stop, and then the next one starts the next day. They're not physically teaching on the same day. The other thing that you might see is my role. So if I look here, Tommy is the lead teacher. If you have co-teaching, okay, so true co-teaching, both regular ed and special ed teacher would be co-teachers. You cannot have a lead teacher and a co-teacher. So if they're truly co-teaching, they're both co-teachers. So, and again, as I'm making adjustments here, because remember, Tommy broke his back and he's not coming back. If I'm doing this throughout the year, I physically have to go to the meetings time tab and change the teacher over here. Oh, and it was Tommy.
Could your scenario be like a planned maternity leave?
Yeah.
You're setting up, you know that person's gonna be out.
Yeah. Yeah, or, you know, they're leaving at semester time. Yeah. So right now, I mean, all your teachers are going to be full year. So, but for example, maybe you know that Tommy is leaving at semester break because he's retiring. You could put that end date in now, but at semester break, it is important that you go back to that meetings time tab. Okay. Next, our EMIS override. This typically is not used. But in case of maybe you're keeping the same section, so I have, or my English 10, but this section is going to be special ed, or maybe this section is going to be my gifted students. So in that case, I could override if you didn't want to create a new section for them, or I'm sorry, a new course for them. You just want a section that is specific for special ed or gifted, or a different population. So typically that's really the biggest difference. You might also see this if it is a CCP class. So if it is a CCP class, say for example, English Comp 1 and English Comp 2, you might have an override because maybe some kids take English Comp through Akron, maybe some take it through Stark State, and then maybe some are taking it through the College of Worcester. So you might have English Comp, have it all set up for CCP, but your override would be the EMIS location for each of the universities. Okay. So again, that's not used very often, but it is a possibility. So one thing that I do want to remind you of as you guys are working. So remember we said the meetings times tab is what flows over into gradebook. Once schedules are finalized and integration is on, this automatically goes over to gradebook. So that is why a lot of times we say, if you're not sure who you are hiring, put in that generic. I think every district has a generic user, whether it's TBD for to be determined, whether it's staff or teacher, because if I just leave this, I'm like, okay, well, you know, I don't know, we'll just leave it as Tommy Brown. It automatically flows over to gradebook. And once I change it, it never deletes that course out of Tommy Brown's gradebook. He would physically have to go hide it. So again, that's why it's important to make sure that you have things right on that meetings times tab. Okay, any questions with sections? And then, for example, if I need an extra section of this, of one of these, I would just add a new section. And I would go through that same process, but picking a different section number. Okay. Next is course groups. So looking at course groups. So I'm going to go back one level in my breadcrumb trail. And then I'm going to go to course groups, or you can type in groups in the go-to box. Please note that course sections can only be assigned to one group. So you can't have, English 10A and English 10B in a group and then say, well, I want English 10A also to be with speech. You can't have the same course section in multiple groups. Okay. So once I go into groups, I'm going to search. I'm working on my default schedule. I'm going to see if I have any groups. So right now I only have one in here. So it is computer 1 and computer 2. So it is these two sections, 160 and 161, which means they have to be taken together. I want to create a new group. So I have, it might be an A, you might have semester 1 and semester 2. So A and B. So you might group those together. You might have, in my example, it's biology 1 and biology 2. They have to be taken together. One first semester, one second semester. Okay. So again, these are things that have to be taken together. You're grouping them together. When students are requesting a grouped course, they are requesting by the group code, not the individual. So for example, in this case, they would request comp. They would not request course 160 or computer 1. They would request comp, and it will automatically request for both 160 and 161. So I am going to add a course group. This course code has to be unique. It can't be something that is already used. Okay, so I know I don't have a 510, so I am going to create my 510. And this is for my biology 1 and 2. Just gonna put bio. Okay. How many kids can go in this? So the scheduling priority will automatically default to 5, so midway. However, if this is a core section, so for example, biology is needed for graduation, you can change the scheduling priority to a 9, so it's the highest. If it is something like my comp 1 and 2, it's just an elective, you might make it lower than 5. Okay. Again, the description, that is just for your personal use. Supposedly this is not working, so it doesn't matter if you check it or not check it. Then if you want the students to be able to see the courses individually. So what is this 510? Okay, so what are they registering for? And then do you want that on the public module? So are they able to register it through the public module? So the next tab, this is where I am going to add my courses. Okay, so if I'm looking for my biology, oops, I can't spell it. Okay, so here is my biology A. Okay, so my 1, I'm going to add that course. And then I'm gonna look for my biology B, which is my biology 2. And I'm gonna add that course. Okay, so now my group, so when my kids are registering, they're registering for 510. So that's automatically gonna register them for both 1 and 2 because they need to be taken together. So whether it's first semester, second semester, whatever it might be. Then I can also create sections. So if I click on add a section, okay, so what section number is this going to be? So maybe I want this section 5 and it has 25, can I have up to 25 kids? Then I'm gonna pick what course. Let me switch to the previous year. I did this in the previous year. Hang on. Okay. So, oh, that's right, because it's not assigned to anybody. So you can see here, so now I can pick what it's been assigned to. So it's assigned to Sparky for first semester and then Mr. Sparky for second semester. So you're wanting to make sure that you're pulling the right course sections to be in this group. Okay, so again, Bio 1, this is going 9th period. So I want to make sure that for second semester, that's also my 9th period section. Okay, so I don't want Bio 1 to be 9th period and then Bio 2 is second period, because some of those kids might have something second period that they can't switch into. Okay, this is locked right here. So on this screen, this determines whether the students with a request for this course within the course group, but who does not have a request for the course group itself, will be scheduled into the individual classes. So if you say is locked, they will get scheduled into both. If it's unchecked, then it could be scheduled into the individual classes. So for example, maybe they passed Bio 1 last year, but they failed Bio 2. So you wouldn't want them to register for the course group. You would just want them to register for 510B. And then you would save that. And again, I didn't have it scheduled in my 25-26 school year. Questions. So that's just our sections, our courses, our sections, and our groups.
Shelley, if we make the sections, so like English 10A, English 10B are a section together, and I have a kid who only needs English 10B, I would just schedule the English 10B outside of the groups, correct?
Correct. Yeah, you could physically do that yourself, or if you leave that is locked unchecked, they would be able to schedule themselves if you're using the public module. But if you want all the other kids to make sure they're taking the group, lock it, and then you would just physically do the request yourself. Any other questions? Okay, that completes the courses. I'm going to stop here.